Hello, this is Derrick with the story of Ruth Law Fritta's A Nation. A pilot named Ruth Law who once flew a nation from flying from Chicago to New York in 1916. So here's how it all started. On November 19th, 1916, Ruth Law tried to fly from Chicago to New York City in one day. It had never been done before. It was a frosty, blustery morning. Ruth woke up before dawn, but she did not feel the cold. To get used to the cold weather, she had slept in a tent on the roof of a Chicago hotel. She put on two woolen suits, one on top of the other. Then she put on two leather suits and covered her bulky outfit with a skirt. In 1916, a polite lady always wore a skirt. It was still dark when Ruth went to Grant Park on the Lake Michigan shore, where her plane was waiting. It was a tiny one she flew in air shows. Ruth called it a baby machine. It was good for showing slight loop-de-loop, but it was small and old. Ruth had tried to buy a newer, bigger plane for a long flight, but Mr. Curtis, the manufacturer, had refused to sell her one. Hundreds of pilots had already been injured or killed flying, and Mr. Curtis did not believe a woman could fly a large plane. Mechanics had worked all night on the plane. They had attached a special windshield to protect Ruth from the cold wind, and had added a second gas tank so she would not have to stop for fuel more than once. Now the plane could carry 53 gallons of gasoline, but the additional gasoline made the plane too heavy to get rid of some extra weight. The mechanics took the lights off the plane. Without them, Ruth would have to reach New York City before nightfall. The freezing weather made the engine hard to start. More than an hour passed before Ruth could get underway. At 7:20 a.m., Ruth climbed into the cockpit. She removed her skirt and stuffed it behind her seat. Good sense defeated fashion. She opened the throttle. The plane leaped forward and bounced over bumps and hollows. It raced upwardly across the ground, then lifted toward the sky. A fierce wind whipped through Chicago. It shook and tossed the small plane. A dozen onlookers watched in fear. A mechanic cried, but Ruth struggled to steady the plane as it dipped and pitched in the wind. She narrowly topped the building and slowly climbed into the sky above Chicago. Ruth Law was on her way to New York City. A mile above ground, Ruth sliced through the frigid winter air at 100 miles an hour. She set her course by consulting the crude scroll of maps she had taped all together and attached to her lead. She also had a compass, a clock, and a speedometer. Ruth flew for nearly 6 hours. She was dependent on the wind to help carry her from Chicago to New York City. But the wind died down. Only gasoline propelled the plane. At approximately 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, she neared Hornell, New York, where a group of supporters was waiting. Then the engine quit. The fuel tank was empty out, and Hornell was still 2 miles away. The plane pitched slightly and sank. Ruth had only one chance to make a safe landing. She struggled to control the steering gear. The field seemed to come up at her. The crowd of spectators spilled into her path. The plane brushed their heads. Ruth was on the ground. She was so cold and hungry that she had to be helped to a nearby car. She was driven to a restaurant for lunch of scrambled eggs and coffee while her plane was refueled. She had flown 590 miles non-stop. It was a record no one in America had ever flown farther. But Ruth's flight was not over. At 3:24 p.m., Ruth set out for New York City. All day, newspapers told the story of Ruth's flight. A crowd in Binghamton, New York had turned out, hoping to see her fly overhead. They were not disappointed. At first, she was just a speck in the sky, but soon she made a striking cameo against the late afternoon sun. Suddenly, the plane slanted toward the ground and disappeared behind some trees. She's down. Something's broken. Nothing was broken. Ruth had decided to land. New York City was 2 hours away, but she would not be able to read her instruments in the dark. She tied the plane to a tree, wrapped her skirt around her, and accepted the hospitality of strangers. The next morning, Ruth flew to New York City. When she landed, an army general and a military band were there to greet her. Ruth was a heroine. "You beat them all," the general said as he shook her hand. Newspaper heralded her feat. President Woodrow Wilson called it rate. A huge banquet was given in her honor. On November 19, 1916, Ruth Law tried to fly from Chicago to New York City one day and failed. Still, she set an American non-stop cross-country flying record, 590 miles, and thrilled a nation. Her record stood for 1 year. It was broken by Catherine Stinson, another pilot who dared. The end. Well, I hope you like this book. Does that time Ruth Law thrill the nation of New York City? Be sure to listen to this book, Joe Biden.